All right. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about my farm. It's hard to try to get it into words, but here we go. She was an old sheep. Her name was Master Jedi Yoda. She was named by one of my sons. As we lowered her body into the hole that we had dug for this purpose, each of my kids said something nice about Yoda's time with us on our little farm. As a gesture, we put into the hole a bowl of her favorite grain and a plastic lightsaber toy. After saying our final goodbyes, each of the kids put a little soil and covered her body up. I don't regret for a moment having farm animals while also raising a big, beautiful family. The kids, no, all of us learned quite a lot from the animals and just living on that farm. But after the last of the sheep passed on, the chickens overtook the barn and it became a really stinky mess, and the roof began to leak, and with every storm, I was really worried that the whole farm would collapse. The wooden fences that we had outlining the pasture started to rot and eventually fell down, and the field became overgrown with weeds. Looked like nature was reclaiming this little farm of ours, but there was something inside of me that felt I really was not yet done being a farmer. Well, I'm really happy to announce that the Gentle Farm became a reality in the summer of 2021 and made me realize that I was right. I was not yet done being a farmer. Right now, there's 30 animals that live at the Gentle Farm. I've got 3 mini donkeys, 2 mini horses, 3 Nigerian dwarf goats, 4 gigantic rabbits, and about 18 chickens. For the most part, everybody lives in peace and harmony. There was that one time when Ziggy, the dwarf goat, crawled into the stall of Sweet Pea, the mini donkey. Donkeys are a bit territorial, and we found the goat in the corner of the stall, kind of cowering. And my guess is that Sweet Pea was not so sweet with her guest that night, but the little goat was none worse for wear, and it all worked out fine. I've learned a lot of heartfelt lessons from my animals. My chickens, they live a free-range life, and each morning I open the coop and I let them out into the yard, and they explore and bathe in dust and eat ticks to their heart's delight. I generally keep about 15 hens and 1 rooster, and each spring I purchase 12 new little chicks. They're there to supplement the flock when the inevitable happens, the inevitable being the loss of hens to predators. Usually, the 12 little chicks all turn out to be productive hens, and they lay eggs for me all year long, but a couple years ago, 2 of those little chicks turned out to be roosters. Well, the saying that there's only room for 1 rooster in the hen house is more than just a saying, it's a fact. Roosters, or hens actually, can be tough on each other. They peck at each other and whatnot, and roosters are even tougher. So I already had 1 rooster, and the 2 newcomers were driven out of the coop by the head rooster. He ousted those little younger gentlemen out all winter long. And although I tried to put up different types of shelter and keep them out of the cold and the snow, they really did suffer over that winter. It was a really cold winter. And one of the younger roosters ended up with frostbite and just this diminished demeanor, kind of cowering and not feeling good. But luckily, an early spring brought relief to the roosters. And an early spring is just a lovely, lovely thing on a farm because you've got the birds building nests and little baby rabbits all over the place, and families are growing. But unbeknownst to me, one of the families growing was a family of red fox in the field next to my field. I learned about the fox family after they came to visit my farm, and I lost 6 birds that day, and 2 of them were roosters. But the remaining rooster was the sad little frostbitten bird that had been picked on so severely. And that bird, if you come to visit my farm, you'll see him today. He is the dominant bird of my flock. He's a rooster, and he's a very confident, healthy, happy chicken. Now his feathers are deep red. He's part Rhode Island red, but you will see on his tail feathers some white feathers that grew out of the scars of that really terrible winter. He's so friendly and gentle, and I'm just really grateful that he did not give up on those difficult days. Owning a farm has always been a dream of mine. Some little girls have suitcases full of Barbie dolls with glamorous outfits, but not me. I had collection of Breyer horses, Breyer model horses, and my friends and I would gather our Breyer horses and have elaborate horse shows complete with homemade ribbons that they would win for each class, and all the different classes that we would make for them, all the categories. And while doodling in the corners of my notebook when I was in school, it wasn't dragons and princesses, it was plans of barns with multiple stalls attached to the house that I would have one day when I grow up. I'm not kidding, that's real. The idea of the gentle farm grew in my mind, and I knew that just owning the farm was not enough. I think the joy in owning the farm was in the sharing of it, the sharing of the farm. I'm a social worker by training, like Adra said, and I've worked therapeutically with children and with families and individuals with physical and intellectual disabilities. My vision for the farm was to share it with folks that would benefit from the peace that being on a farm brings to your spirit. And quite frankly, that's everyone. One of my first visitors, a regular visitor, was a neighbor of mine. It was February 2020, and the news was all abuzz about a virus called Corona. My neighbor Bliss had lost her husband a few years prior, and she would often come over, visit my animals, and bring a bag of carrots. She took an interest in my farm, and she was a regular. But when lockdown came, as our new reality, we all know everything came to a halt. My 2 teenage sons were at home with me, and my sister with significant special needs moved into my house with me. And it was a scary time. And I, like so many of us, felt alone and very unsure. I put a halt to my dreams of building a farm. The future felt too ominous and unsure, to say the least. So about a week after the lockdown, I was peeking out my window and I see a bundled up person walking up my driveway, and it was my neighbor Bliss, and she had a big bag of carrots. During those days of lockdown, Bliss made daily visits to my farm. She would order an extra bag of carrots from the grocer, because we were all ordering our food from the grocers then, and she would slice the carrots in thin, even slices to share with the farm animals. And when I'd see her, I'd often go outside, and we were both masked, standing 6 feet apart, but it was just so great to have a conversation with another adult. And I was thanking her for bringing carrots to my animals and told her that she really didn't have to keep doing that. That was okay, they were fine. And she laughed and smiled and just said to me that the actual buying of those carrots and then preparing them and then bagging them and taking the walk up my driveway, it gave her life, her days purpose, those days that were just one day after another during the lockdown. And she just felt very grateful to be doing that. It was then I decided to move forward with the building of the Gentle Farm. I needed to go ahead and do that. And now Bliss still visits my animals, and I've also had visitors with people living with dementia, teens who have experienced trauma, children of all ages, families, artists, and really anybody who just would like to spend a little bit of quiet time on the farm. There's days that I feel I've really done something nice for somebody that's come to visit, and I feel like I've really done something great. But in all honesty, there are a lot more days when I feel like it was indeed me who benefited from all those visitors coming to my farm. In the same way that Bliss's visits gave me hope and optimism during the lockdown, my current visitors have opened up my world to new friends and really positive, inspirational stories and possibilities. and I'm really grateful for that. Gratitude, along with joy and contentment, are all feelings that I would use to describe this farm of mine. Only a couple years prior to creating the farm, I was going through a tough time. Looking after my father and my stepmother during their illnesses, they passed away within a couple months of each other. At the same time, my marriage of 26 years was crumbling and ending. The landscape was changing for me, and I needed a new direction. It was at this time I saw an opportunity, and I went for it. 3 little goats found their ways into my heart, and soon after that, a large rabbit that was destined for the dinner table, Mr. Bun Bun, also found his way to my little teeny tiny farm, my dilapidated barn. The gentle farm was taking form. I had the overgrown fields cleared, and I had new fences put in. I made a formal arrangement to build a big, sturdy barn with lots of windows, 3 big stalls, and a spiral staircase to the loft. But with my next step, I knew I was all in. I purchased 2 emaciated mini donkeys from a farm up in Coventry, and I had them transported down to my farm. I prepared a clean little stall for them to share in my old barn, and I fed them well, and I groomed them, and I gave them all the love and TLC and attention that they had not experienced at their previous home. Winter was coming, and I wanted to make sure they had a warm, dry place to lodge over these cold months. I was especially concerned because one of those donkeys was very pregnant. I am not sure if you have ever looked up donkey birth on YouTube, but I do not suggest you do that. But let me tell you, I was learning a lot about donkey birth in the months leading up, the months over that winter. The vet told me the baby would arrive anytime between February and June, and I was doing my best to be ready for it. I was preparing. I had got gloves and iodine and a sheet and a suction bulb. I was ready to do what I needed to do. And each night I would check the donkey to see for signs of labor. And each morning I'd go up out to the barn extra early, just so worried that something had gone wrong. And February and March of that year brought a frigid cold snap. I don't know if you guys remember it, but it was very, very cold. And I was just hoping that Sweet Pea could hold off until the warmer months. Well, on the morning of March 30th, 2021, I went out to the barn and was greeted by the absolutely cutest, most adorable newborn baby mini donkey that had ever existed in this world. Sweet Pea did not, after all, need any help from me. This little baby, who we named Ivy, was all cleaned up, standing next to her mama, just as perfect as she could be. Ivy's first visitor that morning was my sister Julie, who was still living at my house. Her second visitor was my neighbor Bliss. And it is hard to put into words the joy that one feels in the presence of an adorable baby newborn mini donkey. But over the next few days, Ivy spread more than her fair share of joy to the people who came to witness this tiny new little life. Neighbors put pink balloons at the end of my driveway, and I had one elderly neighbor exclaim that this was the most wonderful thing that had ever happened on our road in a long, long time. I set out with the good intentions to share my farm, the Gentle Farm, with others in an effort to help during difficult times. I feel those good intentions did a 180, spun around, and flooded my world with friendship, positivity, and a bright hope for the future. And I feel very lucky indeed. Is it a lot of work to run a farm? Yes, it is. I work hard every day, and I feel very strong, but I feel very, very blessed, and I'm grateful for it. Thank you.